Hi guys. Okay, welcome back. So I finished reading the Montauk Project like a week and a half ago, and I'm barely doing the review on it just because I don't know, I just got caught up in reading a lot of things. So I found this one on Amazon from just literally like my recommendeds, and this is what it looks like. It's called the Montauk Project, and it's part of like a series. I don't know if I'm gonna read the series, to be honest. Like, I have so many other things that I want to read and have to read. But this is by Preston B. Nichols, I think that's how you say his name, and Peter Moon. And it's called the Montauk Project, Experiments in Time. It's super small. I read it in like 4 hours. It's like 130 pages. That's what it looks like. The spine and the back. And I'm just gonna let you guys know the notes that I have for that book. Take it with a grain of salt. Like, I don't know how you want to interpret it, but it's actually really crazy what I learned. Apparently this is the project that Stranger Things is based off of, the show on Netflix. And I only ended up seeing one season of Stranger Things, so I don't know. I think maybe season 1 is like the most accurate, I don't know, to this stuff. And then everything else is just like expanding on like story, I don't know. You know what I mean? But yeah, I'm just gonna read it like I always do. So I basically just write down my notes of literally stuff directly from the book and that I thought was the most relevant. So in case it's all over the place. The Philadelphia experiment was known as the Rainbow Project. It intended to make ships invisible to radar, but it literally made the ship entirely invisible and teleported it out of space-time. After it teleported to another location, most of the people on the ship reappeared back on the ship, but phased through parts of the ship so their physical bodies were half in and half out of the ship. I had obtained a grant to study mental telepathy and to determine whether or not it existed. I sought to disprove it, but I was surprised to find out that it did in fact exist. I began my research and found out that telepathic communication operated on principles that are strikingly similar to that of radio waves. I had discovered a wave that could be termed a telepathic wave. A guy named Duncan shows, so now this is my interpretation. A guy named Duncan shows up at the author's lab, and the author finds him to be like suspicious after wanting to work with him like out of nowhere and like suddenly. So fast forward, the author does like a psychic cleanse on Duncan, like willingly, like they're both conscious of it. And it takes away this mind control that was placed upon Duncan, to which Duncan blurts out that he was mind controlled to go to that author's lab, befriend him, then kill the author and blow up his lab. And after finding this out, Duncan ended up becoming the author's friend and had since worked with him because, you know, like the mind control was like taken off. And we don't know who put this mind control on him, but you'll see right now. The author, Preston, starts to have weird occurrences of people recognizing him that he doesn't even know. Basically, he's phasing in and out of alternate realities, and he says this: I pointed to the office where my desk had been, but as I entered the room with the project director, I found it to be gone. In the couple of days since I'd been there, they had removed every trace of myself from the room. Somebody must have realized that I had visited my office when I wasn't supposed to. I had entered in an ordinary state of mind, which was not to their liking. They apparently had not turned on the program, switching me to an alternate reality, for that particular day, and must have been wondering why I had shown up. They must have concluded that the process was leaking and that I was somehow able to remember my alternate existence. As a result, they stopped everything. I was pulled aside through security channels, and I was told that if I breathed a word of what I had thought I'd seen, I'd be locked up in jail and the key thrown away. I was able to make a major breakthrough in 1990. I had begun constructing a Delta T antenna on the roof of my laboratory. One day, I was sitting on the roof and soldering all the loops. I think that was another word, but it got mixed up. All the loops together in the relay boxes, which relay the signals from the antenna downstairs to the lab. Apparently, as I sat there and held the wires together to solder them, the time functions were causing my mind to shift. The more soldering I did, the more I became aware. Then one day, bang, the whole memory line blew open for me. All I could figure was that the Delta T antenna was storing up time flux waves as I was connecting it together. It just kept pushing my mind a little bit with regard to the time reference. The antenna was stressing time, blending it, and enough bend was created so that I was subconsciously in two timelines. This was my memory breakthrough. So this is another character. Von Neumann and his team spent about 10 years working out why human beings had troubles with electromagnetic fields that shifted them through different places and times. They actually found out that humans are born with what is known as a time reference point. At conception, an energy being is attached to a timeline, and we all start from that point. To understand this, it is necessary to view the energy being or soul as distinct from the physical body of the person concerned. Our whole reference as a physical and metaphysical being stems from that time reference, which actually resides within the electromagnetic background of our planet. This time reference is the basic orientation point you have to the universe and the way it operates. So the rainbow technology turns on and creates what can be called an alternate or artificial reality. It creates a stealth effect by not only isolating the ship, but the individual beings as well within a bottle effect. Those beings were literally removed from space and our universe as we know it. This accounts for the invisibility of the ship and of the people on board. The alternate reality thus created has no time references at all because it is not part of the normal time stream. It is entirely out of time. To be in an artificial reality would be like waking up and not knowing where the hell you are. All of this would be very confusing. The computer had to generate an electromagnetic background or phony stage that the physical being would synchronize with as well. If that wasn't done, the spirit and the physical body would go out of sync, thus resulting in insanity. Basically, I know I didn't really explain it, but basically they had developed this like crazy computer machine system or whatever that could basically, from someone controlling it with their mind and like visualizing the location and stuff, like they could literally teleport you. So in the Montauk Project, the people working on this wanted to see how they could train and change brainwaves, so they conducted tons of experiments messing with rates of pulses and amplitudes of energy. In the 1950s, ITT, I forgot what that stood for, but ITT developed sensor technology that could literally display what a person was thinking. It was essentially a mind-reading machine. It operated on the principle of picking up the electromagnetic functions of human beings and translating those into an understandable form. It consisted of a chair in which a person would sit. Coils, which served as sensors, were placed around the chair. There were also 3 receivers, 6 channels, and a Cray 1 computer, which would display what was on a person's mind, digitally or on a screen. It's still a mystery how this technology was developed. It has been suggested that the research was aided by the Sirians, an alien race who came from the star system known as Sirius. This theory has the aliens providing the basic design and humans working it out for that. After several years of perfecting this machine, they had the psychic Duncan Cameron concentrate on a solid object, and guess what happened? The solid object actually precipitated out of the ether. In his mind, he would concentrate on a solid object and it would appear somewhere on the base. Whatever Duncan would visualize, the transmitter would transmit the lattice or matrix for and build enough power to materialize whatever he was thinking of. every single point to where he could witness to a particular spot on the base. At that spot, an object would materialize. In other words, if he would hold an object in his hand and or visualize it, it would appear at the given spot. They actually had discovered pure creation out of thought with the use of the transmitter. Whatever Duncan could think of would appear. The first experiment was called the seeing eye. With a lock of a person's hair or other appropriate object in his hand, Duncan would concentrate on the person and be able to see as if he was seeing through their eyes, hearing through their ears, and feeling through their body. He could actually see through other people anywhere on the planet. This style of experimentation was extensive, but I don't know how far it was taken. They were interested in controlling how human beings think. The next move was to see if they could put thoughts in the head of another person. As the experiments continued throughout 1979, a very peculiar phenomenon was noticed. As Duncan's thoughts were projected out through the transmitter, they would suddenly cease. This was disappointing and appeared to be a malfunction. Eventually, it was noticed that the projection of Duncan's thoughts had not ceased. They were just occurring out of the normal time stream. So, for example, if he concentrated on something at 8 p.m., the object or occurrence wouldn't happen till like midnight or even 6 a.m. So whatever he thought of would not happen at the time that he thought of it. It now appeared that the Montauk scientists could now use Duncan's psychic powers to actually bend time. So in addition to the delta T antenna, there are two other key points to understand: zero time and white noise. Zero time was referred to previously, but I will give a more complete understanding of it now. So first, zero time is outside the realm of our normal three-dimensional universe. It would be considered senior to the created world, as zero time existed prior to our created world. Zero time is our basic connection to the universe. As our universe rotates, it rotates around zero time, but our universe is not the only one. Every universe has a 0 point, and all the 0 points of the different universes coincide and never move. That is why it is called a 0 point. Duncan would sit on the chair, be directed to concentrate on an opening in time from, say, 1980, then the current time to 1990. At this point, a hole or time portal would appear right in the center of the delta T antenna. You could walk through the portal from 1980 to 1990. There was literally an opening that you could look into. It looked like a circular corridor with a light at the other end. The other door would remain as long as Duncan would concentrate on 1990 and 1980. I've been told by those who entered the tunnel that it looked like a spiral, similar to science fiction style renditions of a vortex. When outside the tunnel, it looked like you were looking through space, from one circular opening through space to a circular but little smaller window at the other end. I was considered too valuable to the technical operation and was not allowed to travel through the portal. From 1980 to late 1981, the time function was calibrated. At first, the time portals would drift away. One might go through the portal and come out in 1960, but when one went back to find it later, although it was still being tracked in real time, the portal would not appear where it should have been. One could easily get lost in time and space. Initially, the portal would be opened up, but it would drift. This was because Duncan himself was drifting. He had to go through extensive training to get the portal to be stable. We also had to focus the transmitter more closely and tighten up the thought form translation to get everything right. We would spend days just trying to get a particular time change to occur as predicted. However, there was no particular problem with creating a time warp. Predicting what it would do was the difficulty. Finally, toward the end of 1981, we learned how to stabilize it so that when a portal would appear, it would remain. Although the function was not absolutely perfect, it was predictable, stable, and running according to plans. So essentially what the scientists were doing was using the 1943, 1963, 1983 vortex, which was based upon the natural 20-year biorhythms of the Earth. 1943, 1963, and 1983 acted as anchor points for the main vortex. Sub-vortices or open-ended vortices would be created by going from the main one through an anchor point, 43, 63, or 83. So at Montauk, August 12, 1983 was used. For example, let's say they wanted to reach November 1981. There would be a bridge point from November 1981 to August 12, 1983. From August 12, 1983, they could go to whatever time they wanted. The vortex ran between August 12, 1943 and August 12, 1983 because that was the master vortex. That gave them the stability to create what we call an open-ended vortex. It is called open-ended because there is no device at the other end which is anchoring it. The project was later relaunched for the third time and with a new crew. It was called Phoenix 3, and the objective now was to explore time itself. So those controlling the project began to play all sorts of games, manipulating the past and manipulating the future. I don't really know what they did because I was the one at the switch. My station was in the transmitter building and I had to keep everything going. I was not privy to a lot of what was going on, but at one point I do know that they had an extensive library of videotapes. The researchers started recruiting kids to recruit more kids, ages 9 through 18. They would only recruit blind and blue-eyed looking kids. Sorry, blonde, not blind. They would only recruit blonde and blue-eyed looking kids that fit the Aryan stereotype. What information is available is that they sent every raw recruit into the future to 6037 AD, always to the same point, to what appeared to be a dead city in ruins. Everything was stationary, not unlike a dream state. There were no signs of life. In the center of the city was a square with a gold horse on a pedestal. There were inscriptions on that pedestal, and recruits were sent there to read what they said. I have already said that I don't know exactly what they did with time. I wasn't there, but I do know they did a lot with World War I and World War II. They monitored those times and took pictures. They knew exactly what they were doing. They could actually make up a secondary vortex to observe what was going on. We called this a seeing eye function. The original vortex was such that one could drive a truck through it, but the secondary vortex was an energetic vortex with no physical solidity. One could, however, beam through it. Using phase conjugation through the elaborate computer set up, past and future history could actually be transmitted through the portal and viewed on television. So that's all the notes that I have on the book. It's pretty freaking crazy, honestly, reading it. It almost reads like a sci-fi book, but there is clearly a lot of things that are literally unexplained and that are like very, very weird on the Earth, and it could be from like time manipulation and like God knows like what else. Like honestly, after reading all these books, I say it time and time again, literally like anything is possible, and you have no idea what technology is already available on this planet or other planets just because you haven't seen it. Like just because you haven't seen it doesn't mean it doesn't already exist. So like, yeah, like I was watching, I don't know if I've already said this in a video, but I was watching Billy Carson on a podcast, and he said that when he has like a tech company, and he said like when you have a tech company, you kind of get inside scoop onto all the other tech companies. Apparently all the other tech companies are 300 years ahead in the future technology wise, and this technology just cannot be released out into the public. So if this is stuff that like he knows, can you imagine like the stuff that he doesn't know? And like, I don't know, it's just like all this technology is like available to us that we have no idea even exists. But I'll say it again, and I'll always stand true to it, that there's got to be there's obviously multiple reasons, but there's got to be reasons why like all these authors and all these like movie writers and all these people that make up like fantasy or like sci-fi movies or whatever, there's got to be a reason for them to know like how all these like ships are made, all these, like, how these cities are made, all these like resources and like all this architecture and all this technology. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's coming from somewhere. Like, they're accessing it through their dreams, their subconscious, like alternate realities, ETs, channeling them information from the like Akashic records. I don't know, it could be so many things. Do you know what I mean? But like, there's got to be an explanation to like how all these things just like don't add up and like don't make sense. Like, if you really look into like a lot of things, I can't even like think of one thing, but like I kind of mentioned a few, how like they can even come up with that. I don't know, like it's just hard for me to think that like we can create something out of nothing. Like, we have to have some sort of like memory or like recall of it from like a past life or a future life. Do you know what I'm saying? I don't know, I just like feel that to be my belief at the moment. That's just like how I feel. But that's the Montauk Project, and I recommend you read it. I thought it was pretty good, pretty easy to follow along. Didn't give me a headache. Sometimes the books can be very deep that they'll like give me a headache, because it's like so dense in terms of like the information and the knowledge. But this one was actually pretty easy. I don't know, maybe I'll read another book in the series. I don't know when, but right now I am sifting through some novels, and I don't know which ones I'm going to make reviews on or which ones I'm going to keep reading, which put me a week behind with my comic books. I literally have like a whole pile of comic books that I need to read. So, and today's comic book day too, which like where the new releases come out, so I have to read all of those as well. So yeah, I'm probably gonna have another review after this of a book that I semi enjoyed. I don't know, I had like mixed feelings about it, and I might make a review on it, and it'll probably be after this one.